Now we're going to take a look at the organizational structure for the BES group. And what we see is that it's organized on a regional basis with one head office. Then you have two distribution centers that are reporting into a northern regional office and a southern regional office. And then each distribution center is serving all of the stores in its region, whether they're in the north or the south. So it stands in contrast to a purely functional structure. So this is a regional or divisional structure. With a purely functional structure, you have silos and you've specialized functions where there's one finance team serving the whole company, or there's one marketing team serving the whole company. What you have here, you have a duplication of functions. So you'd have you'd have one finance team serving the northern region, one finance team serving the southern region. The advantages of such a setup is that the different areas in each region are very tuned in to what's going on in their region. They're close to the business there, and they're very fixated on the results of that division or region. The disadvantage is that you have some duplication of tasks. So you'll have colleagues in the finance division of the northern office performing budgets and analysing the statements of their division or region, and you'll have the southern colleagues doing the same. So you've got a replication of tasks there, which is adding costs to the business. Okay, having said that, the head office, as we'll see in a minute, is organised in a more functional way with specialised areas such as finance and HR, etc. Before we move on with that, it's worth thinking also about Country X. We know that the BES Group has launched 5 trial stores in Country X in 2016. There's no mention of a regional office there yet, and there's no mention of any distribution centre being based there. It's probably too soon to be setting up a distribution centre which requires a big investment on the part of the BES Group. So they're waiting to see what happens there. So most likely the distribution centres in the north and south of Country E are also serving Country X. And what's going to happen there is, because the goods are crossing borders into Country X, it's adding transport costs, which undoubtedly would erode some of the margins traditionally experienced by the BES Group in their home country of Country E. So that's worth bearing in mind, and it will be interesting to see how the BES Group will handle that as they advance. Looking then at the setup of the head office, and what we see is that it's more like a standard functional organization. You have the CEO or the chief executive at the top, and then you have these direct reports. There are 6 of them in total. The finance director, the retail operations director, the supply chain director, the business development director, the information technology director, and finally the human resources director. Something that jumps out here is there is no sign of a marketing and sales director. So I would question why that is. Is that responsibility falling under another area? Maybe marketing and sales is being handled more by the business development director or someone else. But maybe it's because the BES Group is not engaging in traditional promotional pushing, that they're not advertising in television, they're not advertising in newspapers or anything like that. Their big thing is the storefront. They want to be present on or as close to the city centres and the main streets as possible. That's their display. Again, I'm reminded a little bit of Zara here, which is famous for not advertising. They reduce their costs in that way. They can pass on those savings to the end consumer. And their big thing is their storefront. That's their advertising. They're present in any major city. If you walk down the main street, you're likely to encounter a Zara store. And it seems to be a similar thing with these value retailers. So Let's look at the different areas then. The finance director, so this is going to be your boss, this lady Maria Isabella. Bookkeeping, financial reporting, budgeting, cash and treasury. There's nothing really that's jumping out as strange in any way there. Retail operations director then. Properties, the cleaning services, the logistics. That's a really big and important area for this company, both inbound logistics and outbound logistics. We've talked about the delivery trucks being owned by the BES group, and it's important that they're getting the right goods to the right stores at the right time. It's going to be crucial for this company. The supply chain director, we're talking here about purchasing and suppliers contracts. We know that the BES group is not sourcing more than 5% of its goods from any one supplier. So there are many different suppliers to deal with, many different supplier contracts, and there needs to be great vigilance regarding supplier standards and regarding the negotiations that go on here. This director needs to be driving a hard bargain here, because cost discipline is really key for the BES group. That's really, really important. Business development director then is looking after product selection, which is a really important area. This is a company that likes to keep its finger on the pulse of what its customers are buying and how their consumer tastes are changing. So they track that very closely and like to respond quickly by selecting the right products to get them into the stores to move more product. Special projects then. You might be dealing with the business development director. You were told that you occasionally lend a hand on special projects on the very first page of this pre-scene. And the trial stores in Country X fall under the responsibility of the business development director. Quite an important area here. Really needs to keep up with changing consumer tastes. Information technology is key to this business. The tracking of data, the capture of data, and turning it into actionable information that the business development director, for example, could act upon in selecting the right products. The logistics team is going to be very interested as well in this information. They need to be relying on reliable information systems, software and hardware. So point of sale, management information, network security, etc. And then finally, we have the HR director, standard responsibilities here for the human resources department: recruitment, retention, training, and disciplinary action. There is a section on disciplinary action later on, which is quite interesting. We'll look at that in detail soon. I would say overall, though, that the center of this diagram is the really important area for this company. From the retail operations director all the way over to the IT director. The strength of the value chain is key to this company's success. There is no room for inefficiency from the selection of goods through to the negotiations with the suppliers, the trial stores in Country X, and really reliable IT systems. There is no room for waste. Any waste creeps in, it equals higher costs, and the higher costs erode profit margins. With the organizational structure then, we saw that this is a regional structure. This has pros and cons when you compare it to something like a functional structure. The main pro would be that with this setup, that the staff in the regional offices are very close to the business. They can respond quickly to the needs of their stores in their area. On the other hand, you tend to have replication of tasks, and sometimes as well you might have divisional loyalties getting in the way of company success. You might have two very competitive divisions competing with each other for resources, not sharing ideas, and that can cause all sorts of dysfunctional outcomes then for the business as a whole. We know that for this company, there is absolutely no room for inefficiency of any kind in their value chain. The center of their organization is very important. We saw the importance of, let's say, logistics, both inbound and outbound. Supplier contracts need to be aggressively negotiated to keep prices down, and IT plays an absolutely critical role in the capture of data, in the analysis of that data, so that logistics teams can use it, purchasing teams can use that information, and indeed the business development team as well should be using it to make product decisions.